I love at the end when he's like, and I'll come back someday, and she's like, why? Why would you come back? Isn't that what happens at the end?
Oh yeah,
like, for you.
I love the
come
song
back for
"Blue
you.
Shadows" that they sing, and at the end, the turtle says, "Good night, Ned." And the horses all they start singing. Are we live? Is this
Hopefully
thing on?
we're finally live. Okay.
Oh my stars!
Man, the people missed it.
This is what happens
technical
behind the scenes at
difficulties.
Valley Day.
That's all we
We
talk
have
about.
a big time
Just
here.
it's a big old time. I actually was just so you were talking about humor, and we were looking at the Old Testament and how there's differences in genre.
Yes.
And they compared this passage in Judges, and it's the one where they're like the people are talking to the trees and trying to make the trees their king. I think it's
Right,
Judges
right.
19. If you take it out of context, you're like, is this like the Chronicles of Narnia or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
But if you take it in context, you understand that they're telling a fable. And
That's
of course,
exactly right.
So when you were just talking about that scene from the Three Amigos, it's absurdist because all of a sudden the turtle is talking and the horses are talking because that doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's why it's funny.
It
That's
is.
why it's funny.
You know, genre is huge in preaching right now. Of course, I'm teaching preaching.
Right,
I'm teaching a
right.
class this afternoon. But in my PhD classes, you know, it's over time, you see things run through in cycles. Right now, genre is big.
That's
It's-
what the
it's huge.
preachers
yeah,
wanna talk about?
Yeah, it's kind of like what's being written about right now. And it is very important to interpretation. You cannot interpret a psalm the way you would a narrative section out
definitely.
of, 1 Samuel or something. So you have to know the genre. You have to think about. That's like what I said yesterday in at least one of the sermons yesterday. I made the comment, you have to interpret apocalyptic literature with apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature throws light on other apocalyptic literature.
Well, but I thought that you were supposed to like calculate it mathematically and make sure that you line it up with the lunar calendar, and this is how you get the exact date that the
Yeah.
beast comes,
No,
right?
No. And I said nothing like that.
Well, you're going to have to answer some tough questions later on because people were
Well-
texting me. Is he talking about this? I'm like, no, that's.
Isn't it funny?
I hope that you're
No,
listening.
I only have one or two people that write me, say, hey, thank you for the message, blah, 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 blah. Nobody ever asked me a question.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's me or if it's just preachers in general, but nobody ever says anything to me.
They just talk behind your back.
Yes,
They
yeah,
just- is he
that's a
talking?
good way to put it.
Well, Well, but you practiced what you were preaching. You were letting apocalyptic literature interpret
Yeah,
itself. You're using Daniel as the hermeneutical key.
That's
with
right.
What you're
Yeah.
doing in the book of Revelation.
That's some of the first apocalyptic literature written. It was a whole genre unto itself that really, I did a big paper on this. And there
Heard
are
it was
those
brilliant.
that go back and say, well, the Persians started it. No, they did not. Or, these people did it. Or somebody landed from outer space and they brought,
Yeah.
kind of did. It really is a Hebrew
innovation.
innovation. That's a good way to say it, yeah.
So the Hebrews really were the first ones to speak in this way of the end times and with the cryptic language and that sort. What are some other?
Well, listen, they didn't understand what they were doing. This is all inspired. It's coming from the Holy Spirit. You get in the book of Daniel and look at the last. This is a good thing for us to look at. Look at the last chapter of Daniel.
Okay.
And you get a glimpse of this. And Daniel wants to know. As for me, I heard but could not understand. I'm in Daniel 12, verse 8. As for me, I heard, but I could not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? He said, go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up till the end of time.
Interesting.
Now, as a preaching, I don't call myself a preaching professor. I'm an adjunct
Even though that's
professor.
what you are.
But we always say this word has to mean something to the people that it is spoken to. I would say 99.99% of the time, yes. But you do have a little slice here, and this is it.
Interesting.
You see it right here. Daniel said, I don't understand all of this. Explain this to me. And the angel says, you just go your way, seal it up. This is for another time.
And we still, I mean, I think you'd agree with this. We still don't necessarily understand everything.
No,
about
we
these
don't.
words.
No, you know, when I preach a sermon like I did yesterday, and I struggled. You know, how do you preach this passage? How do you talk about Antichrist? I mean, what do you say? What redeeming value is in Antichrist? There is none. You know, so I'm looking for what the text says and how I can help people see this and then understand, why is this important? Well, it's important, you know, Jesus says, you know, understand. I've told you this ahead of time. We don't want you to be ignorant brethren.
Right.
And we've got some ignorant brethren. Yeah.
And sisters.
We don't want you to be ignorant.
Right.
You need to understand. You can't grasp all of it, but we need to have some working knowledge of where this world is going so that we can give hope. What's the purpose? So that I know a date, which nobody's going to know? No. So that I'm able to say in these dark days, when it gets darker, and it's going to get darker, we have hope. There's a hope we have.
Well, so then let's skip to the end, because that's ultimately that's where you landed it. And we can have fun talking about some of the details and trying to see like the different parts that are cryptic and hidden. But you said ultimately that the beast, however he looks when he appears, rules for 42 months, and then his reign is over. With but a word,
yes,
he's felled.
That's the great. You know, I took everybody through that whole long process to get to that one thing.
Right.
You know, that's why I asked toward the end, are you depressed enough now? You know, I mean, how you feeling right now? Well, here's the good thing. Is embedded right here in this text is the authority of God that says, I will cut this off.
Well, and I think that's an excellent illustration of what happens in a larger sense when people get so tied up in like, okay, now this happens, now that happens, and there's rapture, tribulation, and what does that do? Well, that just kind of gets you depressed because of all the bad things that are to come, instead of recognizing that all this is happening according to the will of the Lord, whose victory is sure. Yeah. And so that I thought that was the perfect way to end it, to remind
you know,
us
I didn't set out to do it. It's not that I had this intention, but I wanted to take people through this whole thing. This is dark. This is heavy. Yeah. It weighed on me for the last 2 weeks. I'm almost ready to shout this morning that I don't have to deal with that this coming Sunday.
You do seem lighter today.
The next sermon that I preach, because this is just heavy stuff. And you walk through this, whenever a preacher walks through a passage and he lives with the passage for the week, let me tell you something, it will have an effect on your emotions. It does on me. I say often, I have to live out what I'm going to preach that Sunday. And that's why I do sermons. I don't write 3 and 4 weeks ahead of time. I do my sermon this week that I'm preaching this Sunday.
Trust me, I'm very familiar with that fact.
Because I like hot bread out of the oven.
Amen.
I like to be able to get up and deliver hot bread.
So what was the hardest part then of living with this text this past week? Because you talked about that a lot. You even prayed. You usually don't pray at the beginning of your message, but that was interesting yesterday.
Just the oppressiveness that comes with dealing. Satan loves to dwell in the shadows. He does not like attention called to him. Now we think, oh well, he wants to put himself. No, he's from the kingdom of darkness. He is the kingdom of darkness. He'd rather move in the shadows. He doesn't want people to recognize or notice what he's doing. And anytime you give him any kind of attention, he pushes back at that. And it is oppressive.
Because you're bringing him into the light, and ultimately you're showing everyone how weak he is.
Well, that's the thing that you want to do with this, is you want to say there is an adversary. He is real. However, the fact of the matter is, he is not all-powerful.
Correct.
And God has put limits on him and boundaries on him, like he did with Job. That was the reference back to Job.
Yeah, that was a great...
You know, to say, look, you've seen this before. You've seen this worked out in a man's life.
I think that's that, and it's a simple logic problem. God's power is infinite. The adversary's power is finite. So what is the Lord's advantage? His advantage is infinite. You know, that's why I get so frustrated when you'll see like those the sort of fan art on the internet, and it's like Jesus and Satan arm wrestling, and I'm like, it doesn't work
so
like that. Like
ridiculous.
that battle is
It's done.
It's done. It's already over.
You realize the battle is already won.
Correct.
It's over with. It's done. When I lived in Florida, we had a lot of snakes, just a lot of snakes, and I was forever killing a snake in the backyard.
Gotta do it.
The thing is, you go out there and cut his head off, and what is the rest of the snake doing? It is just wiggling, wiggling.
Struggling.
And it continues to wiggle.
Spasming.
That's what you got right now. You got
His
Satan
head's
just
cut off.
wiggling. He has been decapitated. He has been dethroned. He has been defeated.
Well, I feel like that's so you can, as you've done. You didn't do it yesterday as much, but you've done in the past couple of messages where you've kind of brought this into the modern conversation. You know, the current events, and you can see like, these are the beginnings of the birth pains. These are the struggling, the spasming of an already defeated enemy that's happening. And I feel it's important that we call those things out for what they are, because everybody wants to be saying 2020, you know, this is the end of the world. This is the, we're like,
This isn't
this
a drop.
is nothing.
This isn't a drop in the bucket. You know, we talk about this pandemic, how bad it is. Go back and read. In fact, I downloaded a book that I hope I can read maybe in the next week or so on the 1918 flu epidemic.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the Spanish flu.
Spanish flu. And we look at this compared to that. Good night. This is nothing compared to that. However, get to Revelation to the 4 horsemen. And when the pale horseman comes, who is pestilence, pandemic, let's say, this just is nothing compared to the horror of what the world is going to face.
And yet,
and you know, the thing is this, everybody can sense something's coming. There's just more coming. You know, I was off preaching in South Carolina this week. The week before that, I was in Louisiana. I'm going to be preaching to university students next week.
Oh, cool.
A week from tomorrow down in Georgia. No matter where I go, people sense we're losing something. Something is being lost. And, you know, and we feel like that it's being lost, and we'll never get that back. The second thing is this, is we always feel like something is on the verge of happening. I'm going to go home, I'm going to turn on the news, and boom, here's another horrible thing that has just happened. Here's another thing that has just taken place. And the third thing is that we just know, we just sense things are not right. Well, and we don't. And the thing is, we don't know how to make it right.
He's holding up the Bible for our audio, for our audio friends. Yeah. Well, let me submit like a slightly different perspective.
Okay.
I think I would say that all of that is true. However, it's this we have this recency bias. Because things have always been wrong. You can go back to 1918. You can go back to the bubonic plague, the Black Plague, which really, you would talk about a death rate. The death rate was like 37% or something like that.
Yeah, a third of Europe.
And then, and so that bad things have always been happening. There's always been this thing that's wrong. And now we are so connected. And media is totally focused not on being true journalists or reporting fact, but just like getting stuff that holds our attention. Well, what holds our attention are these horrible things. So there will always be more unrest and more difficulty and more pestilence when you turn the TV on. But I sense you got something.
Yeah, well, you know, when you said that, it makes me think of 2 Peter 3, 3 and 4, saying, know this first of all, that in the last days mockers will come with their mocking, following after their own lusts, saying, where's the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue just as it was from the beginning of creation. That's true. There's always been pestilence. There's always been, you know, pandemic. There's always been this and that and the other and trouble. There is just a depth of it now you've had snippets of it. I mean, my word, look at the Crusades. That was horrible.
Terrible.
Terrible things happened in that. We're just seeing it so often now. You know, you could define it into, well, in this century, at this time, this happened. Pretty much the rest of the century, there was not much of anything else. You know,
Mostly peaceful.
then is this, there was this that happened. It just seems that there is such a depth to it, there's such a darkness to it, and there's such a never-ending, continuous stream of this thing.
It does feel
And
that
I
way.
get the sense that nobody has a clue as to what to do. I don't want to be political. I've worked very hard at not being political.
I think you've done a good job of that.
But the fact of the matter is, these political parties, they're, you know,
It's horrifying.
It's out there. They're just both out, and they seem to be flailing at what to do.
Well, everybody's kind of flailing at what to. Here's, and I was talking with the worship team about this week. I feel like what we need to do is let our reasonableness be known. As Christians, we like what is going to be our unique marker? Well, obviously our love for one another. That's what Christ says. They'll know you by your love. However, like that, unfortunately, even the word love has been co-opted by different people with various agendas. I just feel like can we be reasonable with one another? And even in how we think about the end times, and like we should probably say before we go off air, we're not saying that Jesus is coming back tomorrow. We're not saying that anybody on earth right now is the Antichrist. That's I got a text about that. So is Trump the Antichrist? No.
You know, that's the whole thing I said about this. You know, the 666 is there's been so much ridiculous stuff through years. Napoleon was, Hitler was,
right.
Reagan.
Yeah.
They even had Reagan's name figured out to be 666.
Oh, everybody.
You know, everybody that comes
Obama
along.
was, then
Yeah.
Bush. You know, it's every world leader that's like the biggest one is the Antichrist for 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But so that's not what we're talking about.
No.
Like that's not we're trying to be informed and we're trying to be encouraged.
That's where when you preach on this, even Paul, when Paul taught the Thessalonians, they got it all mixed up.
And he had to write them.
They were not, and he has to sit down and write, not one letter, but two. In fact, that second epistle of the Thessalonians has an entire chapter, chapter 2, that really just deals entirely with the Antichrist practically.
Interesting. You didn't even mention that one yesterday.
I couldn't get to it. There's just
Wow.
too much, to get to. But
Well, we can assign that one for homework.
we
People
don't
could
we
read
don't
that.
need to blow this out of proportion and be crazy. We do need to be aware. We do need to understand. We do need to try to understand. And I've given you my understanding and interpretation.
Sure.
There are, if I had gone yesterday, we'd still be in there.
Yeah.
With now, here's another theory about this, and here's another. I try to give what I feel like I understand from Scripture, and what I feel like the Lord has shown me.
Well, I felt like you did the right thing. It was even towards the beginning when you were talking about, I think it was the 7-headed beast, and you're like, just trust me, this is Satan. I've done the homework.
Yeah.
If you want to,
Yeah.
So,
in
and
chapter
sometimes
12,
you just got to do that.
Revelation. Yeah. Yeah, this would, well, I don't have but limited time, and you
Right.
keep cutting, now I'm down to
just cutting
20
it down.
minutes.
Yeah, there's not a, you got to give me my time, Pastor. Oh, man,
We
Lord
do
help
not
us.
argue about
We definitely do not. Praise the
because
Lord.
I won't argue about it.
That's right. Yeah, he's in charge, so he gets whatever he wants.
No,
right.
no.
There's no argument to be had. What were we even talking about? Yeah. So you said like we can't cover all of it. There's no way we can cover all of it. So I would say to the people, if you want to do some homework, that Isaiah 14 passage I thought is really helpful in talking about the character of the evil one, but also like how low he is and how completely defeated he is.
Yeah.
So that would be a homework
You're
passage.
bad as worms. You're covered in maggots. That's pretty sick.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
But he masquerades as an
But
angel of light.
that is what Satan comes to. And that's what he brings you to, if you follow him.
So that's one homework passage. The other one, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Check that one out. And then I'm sure that might leave them with more questions than answers.
Probably.
Who knows? But
It's okay to have
anyway,
questions.
I'll put Pastor's home address in the comments so that you can just go visit him.
Please. I have nothing else.
Well, where are you going this week? So that was your third message in Matthew 24. Where are we going now?
I do not know.
You don't know at all?
No, I do not know. Listen, I've
Wow,
got to
a
teach
mystery.
this afternoon. I have a paper due for a preaching journal that they have they've nearly lost their salvation. They're pulling their hair out, screaming, "Will you please get it to us?" So I've got to write that, and then I will get to where am I going to go. But thank the Lord, I'm going to preach on angels. I'm going to preach on the sweetness of.
You're going
something.
the opposite direction.
I need a week
Aren't
where
angels
I'm.
so sweet? And can't
I
you
need-
guys wait to get your wings and your
Yeah,
harp when
yeah,
you go to
yeah,
heaven?
yeah.
That's scriptural, right?
Yeah.
Or the opposite thereof. Well, we love you guys. You can find all of our different resources on YouTube, Valleydale Church. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can even they can even click the notification bell. I did that.
Yes.
If you get your notifications, and it always emails you or whatever when the new videos go live. I love
Yeah,
being able
I
to see
get that on mine as well on YouTube.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
helpful.
YouTube
Because that's
deal.
where everything goes.
Yeah.
Like that's where all of our
See,
different.
there's my bell right there. And you see what I've been watching on here? There is Beethoven's Symphony Number
That's
7.
beautiful.
So,
And then Andy Griffith clips,
yeah,
of course. Those are
that's
in
the
there.
two. Beethoven and Andy Griffith. They just kind of go together.
I think that we're all done. You want to go to another meeting?
Why not?
It's good seeing you again. We haven't been in
Yeah,
the same
I
room in a
know,
really
I
long
know.
time.
Good. God
Okay.
bless.
All right, we'll see you guys in 4 weeks after our next quarantine.